Good. I think we're working. Can everybody see the screens? All the panelists.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Great. Perfect. Good. So to kick things off, firstly, good morning, everybody. Whatever part of the world you're in, at least morning where we are at the moment. Thanks for joining us. This is the first Data Center Leadership webinar hosted by Data Centers Ireland, and this is going to be the first in a series of webinars. So we're going to kick things off. The subject today is remote operating models for new era and the edge. So we're looking to explore the increasing use of remote sites, dark sites, geographically distant sites, and how we can work with those sites. There is a moderated chat function for attendees, and you can find that at the bottom left of the screen, and open it up by clicking on the speech bubbles. Excuse me. This is going to be running throughout the session, and so if you're interested in posting questions, please put them out there. We're going to collate the questions and then bring them up hopefully towards the end of the session. So again, just bear with us. If you do have questions, pop them into the chat function, and we'll try and pick them up later. So thanks for the panelists for joining us. Thanks for Data Centers for putting this together. The first thing I'm going to do is have each of our panelists introduce themselves. So introduce them first, their name, the company they work for, and then particularly the area of interest they have in this particular topic. So I'm going to go around the screens. So no particular. So I think you're the first on the clockwise rotation of the screens. So if you could kick us off, please.
Who? Me? You're referring
Eddie,
to me?
Eddie.
Eddie.
Oh, me. Okay. Yeah. So good morning, everybody. My name is Eddie Kilban. Can you hear? Can you hear?
Yes, we can.
Sorry. Yeah. So good morning, everyone. My name is Eddie Kilban. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Dataflex Group, and we're interested in this area because we are developing an eNode platform, which are a series of meshed micro data centers, which we're looking to roll out across Europe over the next 3 to 4 years. And as part of that, clearly, these are going to be small locations, which are going to be unmanned. And we're now looking at what technologies and how we use technology to look at our maintenance, look at our access control, look at our security, look at the functions to have those with a minimal input from humans. So it's a very poignant topic for us. So glad to be here.
Perfect. Thanks, Eddie. Simon.
Hi, Simon Brown. I'm a Senior Solutions Director for JLL. JLL, for those of you who don't know, specialise in real estate and investment management. My particular interest here is I work for the Data Centers Group, and we do a number of pieces of data centers, from acquisition of land and transaction of sites and selling and disposal and operational.
Perfect. Thanks, Simon. Ofer?
Yep. So hi, my name is Ofer Lior. I'm a business development manager for the data center software solution portfolio in Intel. And we have a solution that uses IT device telemetry to create an IoT device out of every server in any environment. And then we use this data to actually more efficiently monitor any data center and any compute environment.
Lovely. Thanks, Ofer. And finally, Vanessa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Vanessa Moffat. I head up software product marketing for RITTech. And I have a mild obsession with DSIM software and data center management software tools.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Right. So we're going to kick off with a few questions. Eddie, I'm going to direct this first one to you to get us started. As you say, you're deploying these nodes at the moment, so you're very closely associated with this area. So as we become increasingly dependent on edge and remote sites, should we be looking at introducing new operating models that better suit these remote, geographically distant, dark sites potentially? How do we look after these?
Yeah, so we've got we're looking at this in a different way that some of the sort of funding has been given to some of these edge sites so far. Most of the focus has been on connecting data center or micro data centers to base stations and to existing 4G and 3G infrastructure. So as the 5G networks then get rolled out, they're using that facility to do that last mile connection, low latency 5G. The reality of what we're doing is we're saying, right, that's fine. There's a group of companies who are investing in that, and they're predominantly funded by the tower companies. Well, we're looking differently at it. We're looking at the city centres, right in the heart of the city, looking at deploying these low latency, high compute capacity, very, very new platforms that the hyperscalers are delivering, and putting that into a city environment. Putting a 5G wholesale platform out there as well, so all the operators can connect to it, but having a very large fiber count coming in as well, so that the tenants can use their own dark fiber networks or their own fiber networks to deliver the services. We're also able then to use that platform to deliver 5G private platforms then to adjacent buildings and adjacent industries in the area, so they can aggregate all of that information back. So there'll be storage, there'll be compute, there'll be some processing, there'll be a number of facets there provided on the site. For ourselves then, it's going to be completely dark, so there's a number of caveats that we're already putting in terms of security. So we're looking for existing buildings with existing security systems that we can utilize, existing backup generators, spare capacity on power, and spare areas in the building that we can utilize to put in our platform. At this stage, we've been working with a number of vendors, and we've got designs done all the way through to working with Schneider's EcoStruxure for using that for our building maintenance and our building access control. The DCMI and the IT stack, we partnered with NTT to provide them the support and platform for any of our customers to look at the technical side. And we're working with CBRE in terms of the site selection, project management, facilities maintenance, and also the IT maintenance as well. So we partnered with a couple of very large organizations to create an overall EcoStruxure, an ecosystem to deliver the platform right across Europe. Our potential goal is about 1,000 sites in the next 4 years, so very aggressive, but we see it being a complete mesh network. So in terms of the current standards that are there, we don't see it meeting the tier 3 type standards of full resilient. If that node goes down, the battery support on site will allow the tenants to move their data if it needs processing to another adjacent mesh network, eNode site, over a mesh network. So every one of our sites is connected to 2 others for failover, and we're providing that right across the board. So that's why. So having remote access and having remote DCRMA technologies are going to be absolutely essential, and certainly with IoT for AI, for learning for fan call speeds, things like that, so we know when we need to maintain it, as opposed to just going blanket. Let's do it once every 4 months. We'll know when we need to go and do these things.
So to some degree, you're overcoming that individual site dependency by having a mesh approach, in effect. So you've got no individual site, which is essentially a critical point of failure.
Absolutely, yeah. Now within the site itself, we do have N+1 on a few items, because we've still got to do maintenance on UPSs and things like that. So anything we physically have to maintain within the space, we are having an A and B solution there. So when you walk into it, you will see it very much like a traditional data center. We're not looking to have 2 generators on site. We're looking to use a site generator, and if there is no site generator, we'll have sufficient battery storage to allow the operators to have their own platforms that need processing all the time to be moved away. Where it doesn't need processing, we can hold that back inside by having storage on site. So we're working with the end users about how that will actually be defined. Okay,
perfect. Thank you. So Simon, Eddie mentioned there the maintenance, the management of these sites. looking at a model that will work for these sites. I mean, what is JLL's approach on this? What are you guys doing in terms of approach on managing these potentially dark sites, which may or may not need as much maintenance? They're certainly not going to be manned. Do you have an approach to that? How are you working on it, and is it a model that's changing for you?
Yeah, I think the model is definitely changing. I think Edge was something that was on the radar, and I think what's actually speeded up the change process is the latest sort of COVID issue that we're having. So we've got about 1,700 mobile engineers that were bouncing around the country on various sites, and arriving at these sort of remote sites and pop sites and so on, and carrying out PPM maintenance on a monthly basis. What we noticed is that it's a very poor use of man hours. It becomes very inefficient operating in that way. So we started to use sensor technology and a bit more remote monitoring. So we've got a system that we're using, which is available in the marketplace. We put these sensors on, and they'll measure anything from temperature, air quality, humidity, vibration analysis, leak detection, and depending on what level reportability you're looking back for, it depends on what system we install or how many sensors we install. So we've used these sensors for people that have got void buildings currently, where they've closed down the office and people are all working from home, just to check on the temperature of the building and also for occupancy. And then we've got the sites, the remote, like the POP sites that we look after, which are much more around temperature, humidity, air quality, and in some cases used as a security measure as well, to see if there's any occupancy where there shouldn't be. So yeah, we're trying to embrace technology to really help make it more efficient, rather than an engineer being sent every time. And these sensors allow us to diagnose remotely. About 75% of the issues are diagnosed remotely, so they don't need a person to go on site. They're two-way, so that we can actually control and we can make edits and changes to systems, switching things on and off remotely. So again, we don't have to send people if we don't need to. Just making it a little bit more efficient, and also affecting the sort of green footprint of people as well. We don't want people driving around in vans, and we don't need people driving around in vans.
Yeah, and I'm going to come back to the maybe the change in the way things are being performed, and possibly with lessons learned from the current pandemic. Obviously, as you say, travel, driving around in vans, and site access, etc. I'm going to come back to that in a little while. But one of the things I wanted to pick up with you on is the you mentioning sort of pulling in data, be it temperature, be it humidity, etc. Are you talking purely about the building, or do you dip into the IT stack with that?
So at the moment, it's purely by the building. There is a possibility to move the IT stack, but it will be via a different system. We have a number. We're quite embracing of technology, and we have a number of systems and bits and pieces that are interlinked. But we haven't gone into the IT stack just yet. There's a bit of nervousness around that.
Okay. And it was a kind of leading question, because Offer's next on the list. So Offer, clearly, monitoring the IT stack is very much within sort of Intel's remit, and clearly that's your area. Maybe you can explain a little bit about how you see that evolving, and how you potentially said that integrating with the more traditional building management side.
So yeah, we are an IT company, so we are coming from a to the same problem, but from a different angle. And we have seen the IT devices become smarter and smarter over the years. And there are a lot of telemetry items that are built into IT devices that any solution will need. So these can be servers, these can be storage devices, network devices, and some of these telemetry can help monitor the facility as a physical infrastructure. So today, any server out there in the market can monitor its own power consumption, its own thermal status, its own health. And this very much taps into what everyone said before me. So we have been promoting our solution in the market for the last 10 years. We are not preferring any software than another one. We are technology within any potential solution out there in the market. Our technology can bring out and pull out this information from any IT device, and this data can then be used by any manageability software. So our solution is a technology solution. It has an open API. It can tap into a BMS. It can tap into a DCIM. It can tap into a, there are some softwares that are smaller than full-blown DCIM, such as EcoStruxure or Data Center Hub by Siemens or Expedite by RIT. And we will be able to fetch this information from any device and basically make every server become a sensor. So if you have a small edge data center with only 2 racks, but it has 50 servers, then basically with our solution, you can create 50 sensors within these servers, and you will not need to install the physical sensors in order to monitor the room in a very, very granular way. And this taps into, what Simon said, that, enabling remote manageability and remote monitoring will reduce the amount of times that you will need a technician to go on site. So that's what we are doing for the last 10 years. And I can say that during the pandemic times, we have seen a dramatic increase of the interest for our technology within any type of solution out there in the market. We are seeing big to small companies requesting remote access and remote manageability and remote monitor on their solutions just because they've sent their employees to work from home. So now if there is technology that can monitor the health of the hardware and the power consumption and the thermals and create analytics on top of it, then this is the way to go forward if your employees are far away from the location or are working from home.
Yeah, and I know that there's something like 120 parameters that you can pull off the chips, and there's a great deal of data available if once you've gained access to it. I guess one of the biggest questions people have is probably around security. If we're monitoring remote sites, that's going to be the first question people ask. How do you make that secure? And I understand your solution is out of band, so there is no access to local network, etc.
So first of all, we do not install an agent on any device. We are using the IPMI or monitoring network of the data center. This solution is fully out of band. It does not touch the data that is running on the server. It is using a unique BMC or board controller that it comes with every server. And from a security perspective, we are trying all of our products on our own data center. So basically, our product has been certified by the Intel Data Center group to be installed on our own data center, which are extremely secure. We have customers from defense organizations, from NASA to police departments in many, many countries. We have armies that have installed our solutions. So, I am willing to take any security challenge that someone can drop on us, and I think we will be able to answer all of them with a positive answer on how we tackle that.
So there's a challenge for all the participants out there. Offer you may get a flood of responses on that.
No worries.
So, Vanessa, on to you. So I think from all 3 of the other panelists, we've been talking about remote monitoring, remote management of sites, integration of the IT stack, and the and the building elements, probably the more traditional BMS style elements. So I understand Expedite or RIT's products actually work on that basis. Maybe you can sort of explain how those products resolve some of the challenges that the other panelists have mentioned.
Yeah, I think from a general point of view, I think if you have software that manages also every aspect of the data center, then you're going to have more transparency and more ability to manage things remotely anyway. So if you've got the IT stack, if you've got the data center, the building management system, if you've got connectivity as well, and all of the infrastructure in one single source of truth, then that gives you the ability to manage things remotely. If you don't have all of those components together in one system, then it makes it very difficult to problem solve, to find the root cause of any issue that's going on in the data center. So it's about having the breadth of information around everything that's happening at that system of systems within the data center.
So just on that.
Yeah.
Go on.
Sorry, Eddie, carry on.
Yeah, so just on that, so what we've done is we've split out the 2 elements. So the IT stack is being managed and monitored externally by NTT at the stage, and CBRE then are monitoring the building and everything. And what's happening is because NTT are contracting CBRE to actually do the maintenance for the IT fix, it's given us a bit of a validation that it's like a it's like a two authorizations. So the first one is saying, yeah, we've got a problem on the building, and the second one is the server saying, yeah, we've got a problem. Whereas if the server is given a false alarm, we can do a check back to the building, and because we can remotely access the building in terms of CCTV and IoT devices, we can then do a verification before we have to send somebody or do something invasive. So whilst we accept that, having one platform does make things a little bit easier, there's an element of policing that needs to be controlled as well. Certainly for us in the first wave, and as maybe the market gets a bit more mature, at the moment everyone has to understand it's going to be harder for us just to release the reins of what we traditionally do of having staff and people there to having no staff. So what we're trying to do is do it in stages. So we're looking to do the building as one element and the IT stack as a separate. And the two of them are talking to each other because of that cross collaboration. But it's important that we all know, yes, we do have a problem, and we're both verifying that there is a problem and it can be dealt with. So they will work in tandem to solve the problem, but at the moment we are doing a dual monitoring to maintain it. And some of that information, like, running data centers with multiple customers is always fantastic because we have clients then who are monitoring all of those chipsets that Ofer is offering themselves independently. And they'll be phoning us up saying, your room is at 70 degrees, what's going on? And it's not, it's because one of their engineers has left a cardboard box inside the rack and the heat hasn't left it, and it's their problem. But we're the ones who get the phone call, and we're the ones who have to send the person to site to go and find out what's the problem with that rack, and we don't get paid for doing that. So it's those sort of experiences we don't want to. We're trying to separate the two out, so we have that control of is there a problem, is it ours, or is it yours? And unfortunately, human intervention are the biggest issues we have with our sites. So if we do start having less and less, then we feel we're going to have less and less on-site problems.
Yeah. So you see that integration is something that's going to be sort of happening over time rather than something you're implementing at this stage early on.
I think the discussions we're having is that I think because of these are very, very big steps, I think we just need, for the industry, we're just looking to take a two-step approach. Okay, so, ultimately then, because of clearly what Intel and what RITS can offer, there are other solutions out there then which will be able to have an overall encompassing. But from the reaction we're getting at the moment is people are a lot more comfortable to understand that, those hairier builders over there are managing the maintenance side, and our IT guys in their nice shiny suits, they're looking after this side here. It is still that perception of not having one engineer capable of looking after all sides of the data center, the IT and the facility.
Understood. And I think, Vanessa, you and I have something you and I've talked about on a regular basis is that integration, that sort of, breaking down those two disciplines to some degree that Eddie just mentioned, the silos, if you want to call them those, or certainly the disciplines, and not necessarily having, one set of people with a common set of data that they're referencing. And I know we've talked about this quite a bit, so it'd be interesting to get your views on that and how that, how maybe moving forward we're going to be having a far more integrated set of solutions that can look across the estate. It may not be that everybody has the correct disciplines to be able to manage it, but at least they'll have that common set of data to work to.
I think it's actually really important that we move towards IT and facilities working together and using the same set of data as well, because the clients that I've seen who've actually done this, they've got so many benefits from it, and I think sometimes the problem is actually budgeting. Who pays for the software to actually manage both sides, and that this is it's such a small issue really in the grand scheme of things, but actually getting them to work together I think is really important because the benefits will span the entire business.
So I can maybe chime in here and give you 2 cents about how Intel operates our data center internally. So before my role as a business development manager, I was a data center operation manager for very large HPC clusters of Intel IT in Israel and Europe. Intel has started the data center management journey with having 2 silos of facilities and IT. And I think along the way, we understood probably 7 years back that these teams should work together to create synergy and to make a more efficient and cost-effective environment. This is able to be done when you have a data-driven discussion. So if you have the data available from any solution that can provide data, this can be a BMS, it can be a solution that creates or pull out data from the IT equipment, it can be IoT devices, it can be even Excel spreadsheets. But once you have a data-driven decision between the two silos, I think this enables to really create synergy and reduce the total cost of energy. So during these years where Intel IT understood that we need to break the silos, as you mentioned it, we were able to save a lot of money on our data center operation, reduce the PUE, create better efficiency, and by the way, right-size the environment. So we were over-provisioning power or over-provisioning space, and with the data collected from any sensor out there, I'm not talking about Intel products, then you can create a right sizing of the environment, whether your environment is on-prem, off-prem, edge, and so on.
Yep.
Look, the only thing I just the caution there is because these sites are going to be multi-tenant. It's that perceived risk of information coming that if I'm taking that data from that server. How is that protected? And whilst that data is just, the environment and all the rest of it, it is that perceived risk for the security of it. And so when we're trying to attract customers in ourselves, the last thing we want to be doing is having a long discussion about, well, is your information going to be secure? So we're happy for them to manage and monitor that information themselves if that's so they so wish. We're happy to monitor it for them by having a recognized, IT company like Intel or whatever, but we then are separating the two out at this stage. And as at the moment, from my own reactions, because we are not talking to one customer, one end user, we're talking to multiple customers. It's a much easier discussion to explain that we are looking at the two separate stacks. And I do agree with you, Vanessa. I don't want to be paying for 2 license fees every year because that's what we're going to be doing. I don't want to have 2 sets of integrators coming in and giving out. So we would like to see that as a common goal. But I think at the moment where we sit, I think people are going to have a little bit more ownership of their own space. And by splitting it out, we're allowing them to do that. So we're not pushing the door closed to say that's not the route we would like to go. It certainly is. It makes life a lot easier for us. But at the moment, from what we're hearing, is I think the challenges we've got are hard enough to get them in without then having a load of non-conformance or non-compliance for them internally to try and for them to go back and going in the address. I think once they're in an established stuff for a couple of years, we can maybe then go back and have a grown-up discussion because, as you said, the data will be there. We'll be able to show how we've managed the facilities in that period remotely, how we've been able to do it, and then we can have a joined-up discussion about how can we then pull the 2 sets together so we can do it way more efficiently, using AI then to do a lot more integration into what we're trying to fulfill for the client. So that's the only tuppence I'd throw into that conversation right now.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so Andy, just to tap into what you said, I fully agree with you. This is one of our challenges trying to sell our technology to co-location providers because the tenants are sometimes not open enough to let the landlord touch their IT environment. So yes, this is a challenge for us. I can tell you that looking at a very wide range of companies that we're working with, this will require some kind of a culture change within the customer base, I think. I think this is a cultural issue. We are seeing this problem in several locations, and we're seeing less of this problem in other locations on the globe. It really depends on the amount of trust that companies have on the general solution of co-location, right? Not a specific company. And I think we are seeing a trend that over time, companies are becoming more trustful for their landlord and co-location provider. And in these places, we are seeing the adoption of these types of technologies, right? And we are hoping to be able to show the value and help landlords increase the trust. So if we can offer a secured solution, then we can help the landlords and help the tenants to pay less for their solution. If they
certainly for ourselves, we'd like to see in our second year rollout that we're now integrating everything. But I think for the first wave, for the first 100 or so sites, first 200 sites, I think we're going to be offering this as the only solution. And then as we go forward, as the clients can see and they get very comfortable with how our solution works and performs, and there's that history, because this is all new stuff. This is, I mean, there is no market for some of the technologies these customers are going to use and on offer. It's not there yet. It's all coming, you know. So, you know, something that the very fashionable things like, you know, automated vehicles and things like that. You know, they're all the sort of things that we're going to be housing in our locations. Not to talk to them, but to give update on software, compliance, things like that. So that's what's going to be shared out from our locations, and that needs fast, low latency connections, and the clients are just focusing on that. Once they've got past that and they're happy that the platform works, their platform works, we can then have a chat with them about what we need then to make the site even more efficient.
So yeah, I fully agree that the two-phase approach that you're offering is probably the right way forward.
Yeah.
So two things. I know Simon's there. Simon hasn't quite fallen asleep yet, so I'm going to wake him up, chaps, if you don't mind. I'm going to bring him into the conversation. So I think there's one thing I'm going to say. I think, Vanessa, I'm going to talk to Simon in a sec, but I think, Vanessa, you may have a case study coming up soon that will actually talk exactly to what both Offer and Eddie have been saying.
Exactly.
So look out for that one. Yeah. So Simon, just to make sure you're still awake and paying attention, I just thought I wanted to pick up on one of the elements, actually, going back to more the building side of things a little bit. One of the elements that was mentioned earlier. So we talk about remote management. We talk about unmanned sites. We talk about sites that maybe have less specific dependency. Do you think we've learned any lessons from the whole current pandemic, which has had obviously travel restrictions and site access restrictions? Has that allowed us to maybe test remote operating models and test the way we do things a little bit more? For these remote edge sites, but actually, could we be taking those back into the more traditional, historically manned data centers? Is that are we learning some of those lessons as we have with conference calls and all the rest of it?
In the first instance, I think lessons learned. I think we're definitely learning lessons. We're constantly moving, and we're trying to remain flexible with the environment and change the workforce strategy in line with the requirements. So as everybody else in the industry is. With regard to learning lessons on the manned data centers, I've got to say, unfortunately, not. The data centers we operate 24/7, like they all are, and they have engineering teams on them. And the only thing that we appear to have learned from this current pandemic situation is that we're going to now split the shift to try and bring more resilience if somebody were to be, God forbid, infected. Then we split the shift so that we then have the availability of manpower on that shift that is site aware. I think we've learned as much as we could from the manned site perspective, but on the mobile site perspective, definitely, because customers now are seeing that actually, condition-based maintenance can work, and actually using more remote monitoring tools does help. And actually, you don't need an engineer to turn up once a month, every month, to look at a pump or a fan coil unit or whatever else. So when you give people that data and they've been forced into having that data thrust upon them, rather than waiting for them to actually engage and take it, then they see the data, they understand the analytics platforms, they realize that actually they can still interrogate their building to the nth degree, and actually they're quite happy with that. So we are learning, but on the manned DC side, I think it's a very, we've got a very traditional mindset, and the industry doesn't like to move away from that 24/7 operation, men on site. In the past, I've seen, when we talk about the IT collaboration and the engineer collaboration, I've seen where companies have actually embraced the IT side a little bit stronger than the engineering side on the out-of-hours cover. So IT guys have been the 24/7 night shift guys, and the engineers have only been Sunday to Saturday in normal day working hours. So, but that realization of knowledge between those two teams has allowed both parties to become first fixed point of call for any breakdown or any issue, whether it be IT or HVAC related.
Interesting. So, and I mean, Eddie mentioned sort of, I don't think you used the trending, but I think, the collection of data and doing some form of analytics with that, which ultimately be sort of trending. And that leads inevitably to the idea of predictive maintenance, more predictive rather than preventative maintenance. And interestingly, we've got a question from Dave Horner at Google, who's actually saying or asking, will we see more predictive maintenance relying on IoT sensors and machine learning rather than maybe the more traditional planned preventative maintenance schedules, etc. Is that something you see coming, Simon? Is that something you're looking at?
Absolutely. So we have a program called Next Generation Maintenance, which is exactly that, and that's a program that's being embraced more and more. And as is often the case, it tends to be embraced by the big finance houses first, and then sort of moves down the stack as we go. But yeah, it's definitely something that we've been pushing for a long time. When you give people the data and the analytics, and show them that they can actually make their engineers much more efficient. They can still have the same number of engineers. It just frees them up for more reactive tasks. It gives them the reporting requirements they need to go back to the board with. Yeah, and it really does help with the whole life cycle plant replacement plan. That you can see historically an issue with a piece of kit over a period of months, and you know what the life cycle of that is and when that's going to go. And if there's identical kit in other sites, you know that there's going to be a life cycle replacement on that kit as well. So planning your sort of capital outlay purposes, it's fantastic.
Yeah, perfect. I know, Vanessa, from your side, we talked about trending and the collection of data and the analysis of that data. That plays sort of directly into that, doesn't it? Really, that whole using that data for predicting rather than preventing.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people are going in this way. When we have this data and we collect it over time, then we can make analysis on that data and start to predict what might go wrong in the future. And it's going to be very valuable information. I'm not sure if anybody's got it completely working right now, but that's definitely the direction we're working towards, and it's going to be so valuable in the future.
Yeah, and is that something that Intel are working on offer? You're obviously as a business, you're very close to that sort of processing and management of data. Is that something you're looking at?
So yeah, our technology is going further the ability to do predictive monitoring and predictive analysis. So we have implemented machine learning capabilities that are able to identify, for example, thermal problems before they put an impact on the SLA. This we have working for the past 2.5 years with great success. We're now working on predictions for power consumption spikes and so on. So yes, our technology is promoting forward prediction and machine learning capabilities. And we always believe that the more data you have, then the more analytics you can put on the data. We've been pitching that to the market for a very long time. We believe that we should use any device to provide all the amount of data that it can provide, and we are offering some monitoring and analytics capabilities that we offer, but we are actually depending on our partners such as RIT or such as other DCIM providers to create additional analytics on top of the data that we provide. And yes, this is clearly the direction.
Great, excellent. And from your perspective, Eddie, then you're relying on these guys to, I guess, provide you this data to allow you to do, more the predictive maintenance that you mentioned and using the trending, etc. That's something you're going to be building into your business over time and taking increasing advantage of the new technologies that are coming available.
Yeah, and that's something we've been implementing in our own data centers, in our traditional co-location data centers, is that cycle speeds and air handling unit filters and things like that. We've been looking at the usage down to the actual hours run, so that we know when we need to maintain that particular device. So we reduced, again, using our maintenance company, CBRE, we were able to reduce our man time on site from our vendors that actually do any repairs. And we found over the years then we were getting ongoing savings because we were able to look to see when fans were going to fail. And we're able to order in have stock ready, and then it was a very quick changeover then swapping things out. So going forward, having 1,000 sites right across, diversely located across Europe, we're going to need that information so that we can predict next week or 2 weeks' time that we need to go to that site and do something. It isn't going to be the same as sending a guy the next day. We're going to need to plan ahead, and having that predictive information is going to be essential to running the e-nodes efficiently.
Okay. And to change tack slightly, we've got a question in here from Gary Watson at Keppel. I think you know Gary reasonably well, Eddie. I think, but he's asked, but he's asking, basically talking about remote management and managing an edge site, managing a remote facility. What do you see as the pros and cons of an outsourced model? Clearly you're going for an outsourced model, as you've already mentioned, but how do you weigh up whether it's worth taking it in-house or taking it out of house? And Simon, I'm sure you'll want to talk about this one, but I'll go to Eddie first.
So we made that decision because we've got to look at a partner that's got a reach and coverage across a very wide area. So we've gone with the approach that we need to have someone who understands clearly the data center industry, but has also then got locations right across Europe. So we went with CBRE on the basis of the fact that they've got that coverage, and we've gone with NTT to do the same as well. So between the two companies, they're covering, out of the 27 countries, they're covering somewhere near about 24 of the 27. So there's a few small spots there which we'll find local partners to provide the support to, but we can give coverage right across Europe. Clearly, they're very strong in the UK, they're very strong in Ireland, but they've got very strong footprints across Germany, France, Austria. So we're working together on the basis that's the reason we've gone with them. For my own experience, to employ people at a local level to try and manage those sites. When we took over Viatel across Europe, we had a number of small pots all over Europe, and we had a nucleus of staff then which managed it. And it wasn't efficient. It wasn't run properly. It wasn't the way that we could. We need to address to provide that service to our future customers. So having somebody like CBRE and NTT for us was the only way forward to do this meaningful, but also have that credibility as well of being able to roll this out and support it going forward.
So a lot of it's around geographic capabilities, local capabilities. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So, it's geographical scope, because of the reach.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, and Simon, from your perspective, this is clearly an area that you focus on heavily.
Yeah, no, I think Eddie's absolutely hit it on the nail on the head. Really, I think the credibility, the size, the scale, and the cost are the main deciding factors around outsourcing or insourcing. When you're talking about edge and you're talking about multiple stuff, it's just not practically viable for a customer to insource that kind of work. Just the management staff, the fleet, any kind of sickness and holiday cover, the scale and scope to cover more than one country, the multiple languages. I could go on and on and on. It's just really, really difficult to do an in-source model. And the structure that you would require is pretty magnificent. It just makes it cost prohibitive. The margins in what we do and what we do are so low that the cost to the customer it's not negligible, but the cost difference between outsourcing to us and insourcing it yourselves is huge. And just the headache of having to manage is immense, which I'm sure Eddie could vouch for. So I'm an advocate of bringing the outsourced companies in. I'm very strong on that. But then on smaller sites, you have a single man site or so, insource versus outsource, then flips almost, depending on what access you want to technology and the latest thought processes around maintaining these sites. If you're happy to tick along with, I've seen sites that are, relatively old and relatively old kit in them, but they're quite happily functioning and they've got a team of 3 or 4 engineers that work directly for them, and they're quite happy to work that model. And it works for them. It's the minute you get into any kind of size and scale that the coin flips and it changes exponentially.
It's true economy of scale then, really, as well as geographic. And Vanessa, coming to you on this, clearly, if we're talking about an outsourced model, managing multiple remote sites, etc., these guys are going to need the tools to be able to do that. Tools that do work remotely, that are secure, that give the information. What's your view on that?
I think it can be quite complex, can't it? And there's so many different skills required within a data center to troubleshoot, to manage things, even just to deal with IMAC, installations, moves, adds, changes. Just for that, technicians need just a bunch of skills just to manage those things, let alone deal with the plants and the BMS. So I think outsourcing does seem to be a better model, especially like you both say, Simon and Ed. If you've got larger data centers or multiple data centers or across country, then outsourcing does seem to be the better model, because you can get those skills without employing each individual person with those skills.
But I guess if you're using outsourced teams, remote teams, issuing of work orders, asset management, accuracy of data, all those things play into it. So it's not just about the integration piece; it's about having accurate information around each individual element. Again, managing the assets, managing the patching, getting people to do the right thing, even though there's nobody looking at them and they're working remotely. I guess that's the challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you have the transparency of data, then you can actually just issue the work order and it can be done. If you don't have that information, then the first thing you have to do is go and send someone to go and find that information. So
that's true.
I used to migrate data centers, and nobody on this planet knows what's in their data center. They might think they do, but there's always something that's changed. So if you can actually get to the point where you've got an accurate inventory of your data center and everything that's in it, then you can manage small changes, big changes. You can migrate the entire thing, as long as you've got the data.
So we're looking at that, and
Eddie, I think.
Yeah, we're looking at that, and what we've done is we've got a company called PlantQuest, a small Irish company that develop platforms for pharmaceuticals and other parts of the data centers. And what we're doing with them is that we have an IRFD reader that will actually bring all the data for that site when the engineer arrives on site. And he gets the ticket, he gets the work order, he arrives on site, and when he gets there, then his tablet will then have an upload of the IRFD. All the changes he does then there and then are actually then preloaded back onto that IRFD storage that's there on site. And when he leaves the site, then it's taken off the tablet. So everything is then site specific then. So anything he does on there, all the changes are captured. The CCTV for him actually carrying out those changes is recorded, and again is put onto the local storage. Okay, and again that storage is not remotely accessed. It's there on the site and
Right.
So when the next engineer comes to, well, what can we do there? He can go in and he can actually see the task that's carried out by the previous visit, and it's all locked there on site. And there's some of the functions we need to do, so that when someone goes there, they can see what's happened, who's done what, and if there's been an error, what was that error and what caused it. So we're capturing all that data locally. So there's some smart things we're doing there, and again with Echo Structure, we're working with them then to integrate that PlantQuest platform into the Echo Structure. So it's one tool that ultimately, but we're finding there is gaps to what we would like, to what anybody has in the market at the moment. We have a very good young engineering team, and they're again they have Fortnite themselves, and so getting games like that they spend their time on. So they're looking at those next level of platforms that I wouldn't be interested in. So they're coming up with these solutions and finding people out there who provide them. Sorry.
And yeah, games that require far more bandwidth than I have available. But so you're moving away from spreadsheets and key data being held on individual laptops, which I think we've all faced at various points.
Exactly. And
so
security,
Yeah, exactly. So, Offer, how do you play? How does the Intel platform play into this in terms of verifying the data, making sure that the data is accessible, making sure that it's in the right place? How do you guys approach this problem?
So, one of the pain points of any data center manageability tool is the need to update and make sure that the data is accurate, right? So that the equipment is located in the place that it's located. And I have to say that our technology does not offer a full solution for that. I don't think there is a full solution for that other than some active RFID solutions that are there in the market. That are available in the market, but our solution does offer a good step forward with regards to changes that are happening in the environment, because we are relying only on live data, right? So we don't deal with data that you feed into the system. Then if anything changes, if you get a server that was shut down, moved, change of IP, we will lose the data. So our technology is able to monitor itself. And then if anything changes and we're stopped seeing data from a device that we've used to see data before, then our solution will trigger and say, hey, we've had a device, this device was showing data to us for, I don't know, a year, and now it's gone, please go and check. This is a very good indication that the database needs to be updated. We do have many customers that have implemented some automated solutions that compares between databases. So, for example, the Intel DCM database is compared once a week with the data center asset database that can be available in an asset management tool or a DCIM tool or any other tool that the customer might have. And then a Python script comes alive, it tests the two databases and makes sure that they are equal. If they're not, it updates one of the other databases with the data that it's missing, or shoots out an alert if it doesn't know what to update. So we have many customers that have implemented a solution like that. But for us, there is no straightforward solution to solve this end to end.
But it's the answer is not a spreadsheet on a laptop, is it?
Of course not.
No.
and again, as I always say, the more live data you have, the better the data in your database is.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, yeah. Good. Well, thanks, guys. We've got 10 minutes to go until the top of the hour. Do we have any questions from the StepX team, from the Data Centers Ireland team? Do we have anything coming in from the attendees?
So, Jenny Little, how do you intend to physically secure the sites? There's a question.
Is that for Eddie?
Yeah.
I guess it is.
I guess, yeah.
So the sites themselves will be in an existing facility, an existing building, whether in some part of the existing building. So the existing building itself will already have its own element of security, which we will benefit from. But the building itself, then our own micro data center will have the typical man track, external door, internal door before you get into any IT space. So, as I said, it will look very similar to a data center. It just won't have the full tier 3 type standards that are expected in the traditional data center because of failover. But it will have N+1 on a number of devices. But security-wise, we are looking to conform as close to 27,001 as we can. But we definitely can't be certified for 27,001 because we don't manage very major parts of the aspect of the security. So we're looking for 24/7 security on site from the landlord, and we're looking for secure areas within the building to start with, and then we have our own security then after that.
Okay. Another question for Eddie from Paul Boyden. What is the target for the data centers?
So the target PUE for the data centers is still 1.2, which is typical to all data centers. We're looking at efficiencies as the density of the servers goes up. We're looking at using on-chip cooling solutions that all of the hyperscalers seem to be putting out now as their solution for high-density solutions. We've been working with Intel in the past at some of the workshops they've been providing for how we take that heat from the building. And so we're looking for either existing heat exchangers, introducing heat exchangers to the building, connecting into the building's heating system, so we can dump some of the hot water there, and also any district heating system belonging to the cities. So we're looking at displacing any heat we build internally. And Paul is also asking, how does that become sustainable? We're looking at, again, using as many green elements as we possibly can. So as free air cooling, as I say, district heating for dumping some of the coolants, and using then the on-site power that's there. So currently, a lot of buildings would have had a larger MIC than required. We're looking at using that vacant MIC and then contracting with companies who are predominantly getting their power source from renewable energies.
Perfect. A question
Thanks.
from...
I've got it up, Simon. Thank you. But carry on. I've actually got it, but thank you for that. It's finally appeared.
You carry on.
Slow response on this one. No, right. Interesting. So, still talking about security. Actually, we've got a question from Paul Boylan. Talking about biometrics and security. Whilst we're on the subject of security, where do you feel biometrics come into it? And I know it's almost a religious debate, isn't it, with biometrics? Do they work? Don't they work? Are they worth it? What's your view on that, Eddie? And indeed anybody else? I'll come to offer on that one as well.
So so we're looking at four authorizations to get access to the data hall. So there will be biometrics. So there will be a palm reader, there will be a thumb reader, there will be a PIN code which is unique that will only come as a WhatsApp or a text message to the engineer when he arrives on site. So, and that PIN code will be renewed every time someone comes to the site. There is a camera there then for him to be recognized. And then there is the authorization through the ticket to actually get onto the site itself. So we're looking at, some form of swipe as well. So we're looking at a number of different ways to ensure that the engineer can get there. Before the engineer can get down to the physical site itself, he's got to go through the building security, which will already be pre-notified that someone's coming. He'll have to show some form of ID to be allowed them to continue on there. With the Plant Request platform, we're able to map where the engineer comes in to how he actually physically gets down to the data center itself on site, and then what he needs to do internally within the data center. So again, using those different platforms, we're able to integrate that. Absolutely, biometrics is fundamental.
And I think offer, as a former data center manager yourself, I mean, I know Intel use a lot of biometrics. What's your view on the use of biometrics? Is it a genuine benefit for security, or is it largely a marketing exercise? And the jury's out on that one, I think, sometimes.
So I think it's a genuine solution to the problem, but I think, in some countries it's more complex than others. So even inside Intel, some countries forbid Intel to take biometry data from employees, even employees that work in the data center. So it really depends on the country permissions and local laws. Inside the Intel data centers, we are relying on other capabilities that unfortunately I cannot share here. But I have to say that, at least in my personal view, the physical aspects of security are not the most scary aspects. So I think these can be solved quite easily with the technology we have today. I think cybersecurity is the more, technological aspect that is challenging. But again, I'm not an expert at that.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I've got another interesting question here, actually, and it'd be interesting to hear all your views on this one. The question is it more energy efficient to have single large sites or multiple smaller sites? And is energy efficiency, or should we frankly be looking at the function and energy efficiency as a secondary measure? So I'm going to start with you, Eddie. I think, the question being, is it more energy efficient to put everything together in a single large site, or is it more efficient or less efficient to have multiple geographically diverse sites?
So this goes back to my my example of the triangle. So on the triangle, you have the hyperscalers having their very, very large footprints at the very bottom. You then have that medium split, which is the regional data centers, which are doing cache and everything. That top bit, which is the ultimate edge, are where you need to get close to the end users. You need to get close to the customers, and no latency applications for the new wave of applications that are coming. If you don't go there, you're not going to be able to get latency efficient systems to go back into that second or that third layer. So it isn't about moving everything to larger footprints. It's about getting closer to the end users. What COVID has taught us is that all of the hyperscalers have seen a massive increase in their services. Microsoft has made a statement that their teams use has gone up by 700%. So that's put a huge score on all the servers that have in their facilities. So they need to then try and separate out those particular IT stacks they have. So as they need those little applications, get closer to the customer. So you're not using that bandwidth then to go from there all the way back to the larger data centers. So these are fitting into the overall ecosystem of where data centers are maturing to. So unfortunately, they are a necessity as opposed to something we can move further down the stack. They're absolutely essential to be close to people.
Yeah. So I think, in general, just sort of answering the question myself slightly, and I'm going to come to Offer on this one as well, but I think there's a perception that smaller sites can be less energy efficient, but I guess if those sites are optimized, if they've got very, very minimal cooling overhead and the processing load is working very efficiently, then they can be just as efficient as larger sites. But maybe it's more challenging. So Offer, what's your view on that? And I think, again, we seem to have a focus on the building load here. We were all driven by PUE, but actually what we need to be doing is considering the actual IT load and how efficiently that's running as well. So I'd be interested to hear your view on that, Offer.
So first of all, I think smaller sites at the edge are a necessity, right? So we cannot avoid them, and I think we should have them anyhow, even if they're not efficient. I think efficiency is exactly. Something that when you are developing a new, even a small site, even one rack, even two rack site, and you're developing it from a greenfield perspective, then you can make it extremely efficient. And I think the more utilized that you make your IT equipment, the more efficient the site will be, not only from a power consumption perspective, but also from what power is used to be doing, right? So, the more load that you put in these small sites, the more work you can get out of these small sites, and therefore the value is bigger. So, measuring the efficiency only on power consumption, at least in my opinion, I don't think it's the right way. I think we should measure the work done by these hundreds or dozens of kilowatts being taken by this specific site, and the more work we can do with these specific kilowatts, the more efficient the site is. And I think small sites can be efficient.
That is the and exactly. Sorry to interrupt, but the definition in terms of physics is useful work done, isn't it? When we talk about energy efficiency, so if we're not referencing useful work done, we're not really truly referencing energy efficiency. But Vanessa, do you have a comment on the energy efficiency side?
Yeah, I do actually. I think we do focus on energy efficiency quite a lot, but I think we also need to focus on where we get that energy from. So the data center industry consumes more energy than the airline industry globally. And I think we can focus on efficiency, absolutely, but we also need to make sure that we're getting renewable or green fuels or sources. So it's not just damaging the planet. So a slight aside, but I think that we need to consider too.
And Simon, from your side?
Yeah, I think everyone's really touched on the key points. It's about how loaded those big sites are, or the small, as to how efficient they will be. I'm sure that logistically it's much more efficient to build one big data center somewhere, but as we said, edge is a necessity, and having multiple sites is a necessity. We're never going to get away from that. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Well, thanks everybody. We're at the hour, or actually a couple of minutes past. What I'm going to do is wrap the session up, but after one final comment from each of you on the topic, and I'm going to go in reverse order this time round. We started with Eddie, so I'm going to go with Vanessa this time round to wrap things off. Final comments on the session before we wrap it up.
A data-centric approach will bring the most efficiency.
Thank you. Offer?
Pull as much live data as possible from any type of device and make sure you use it and analyze it.
Perfect. Thank you. Simon?
embrace remote sensor technology and the ability to use analytics and not just people.
Yeah, nice one. I like that. And finally, Eddie.
Who appears to have
I think
disappeared.
we've lost Eddie.
Run away.
We've lost him. So on that basis, since our panelists are running away from us and we're losing them, I'm going to wrap the session up, and all it remains for me to do is thank the panel. Thanks all of you for taking part and giving us a very interesting debate and an informed debate. And also thank you very much to Data Centers Ireland for setting the event up and hosting it. And we look forward to the next event. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you, all of you out there, for listening and bearing with us. Thank you.
And on behalf of Data Centers Ireland, I'd like to thank all the panelists. The next one should be on August the 13th, looking at data centers, power and energy in Ireland. So I look forward to inviting you all again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.